Welcome back. So today here in the shop, we're back on the 26 Oakland and we're feeling a bit fuelish, and we're going to see whether or not the fuel system on this car sucks or not. I'm Mike and this is My Car Shop. So as I mentioned, we're back on the 26 Oakland today and we're going to be working on the fuel system, maybe a few other things, we're not sure. We'll see how that goes. One of the things we try to do is break down a vehicle project like this into systems, and today we're going to focus on the fuel system. Maybe we'll get to the exhaust system, don't know. But let's just get into it. Dad will be here, we'll be working together, and we're just going to get right after it. Also, be sure to stick around because Dad has a very special message for all of the viewers on the channel, and he wants to share some things with you, so be sure to stick around right to the end because it's really cool stuff. Also, it's through that hole. Okay. Very good. Now that the tire's off of there, we might be able to just drop the tank off. We can get a lot more access to stuff now. That's what I wonder. First time I've ever seen a tailpipe connected to the exhaust tank strap. That just doesn't seem safe. I'm betting there's a couple of bolts on these straps so we'll need to disconnect all of that over there from the sending unit. Yeah. And then there's probably 2 bolts that hold these straps on, and then we can just drop that tank right onto the hoist. So, but we're gonna have to get that muffler out of there anyway. So
do that first.
I think so. Do you think there's any chance we can get this screw loose here? Just a flat blade screw, get that loose, get that tailpipe loose, try to salvage that clamp, and then we'll just take and cut that with the Sawzall right off the back of the muffler. I don't know that we want to use that little bitty tailpipe, but I'd like to save it in case we do.
Sure. Okay. Get it a dose of WD or something like that?
Yep. Let's see if there's any look like up here too. I got nothing. I don't know how they work. I wonder if they're... I bet you... No, that's not that. They go right up around, so I'm a little unsure. I guess I can get my light.
You want to get those jack stands under there?
We'll be alright on that for now.
Okay. So a flat blade. Huh?
Yep. Top toolbox, second or third drawer down. Well, my light just quit. There it goes. Huh. Never seemed to beat to that. I wonder if it's under the back seat, maybe. Right in the back corner of the car. There's those straps go right around and right up around the top of the tank. There's no place that I can see where they attach.
Oh.
Because it's not like they're twisted to come over here. They're perfectly straight. So somewhere up under here there is something. Maybe we need to pull this plate off, but that's, well, it's welded or riveted to the frame, so. What's this bolt here maybe? Nope, that's a bumper. Yeah, nothing. I don't know. Apparently they intend you to buy a new car if you need to pull the gas tank out. So once it's up enough that I can release it, then I can just let the hoist down. So. Pulling on it, but I didn't pull hard enough. Probably would have to this time. So.
I didn't realize that had to drop out of the hard way.
Yeah. The car should be fine. So. So what we're up against right now is trying to figure out how to drop the gas tank. And there's two ways to do it. I called Wayne and I had kind of figured this out, but I wanted to find out if there was an easy way. You either reach up in there with a wrench and 15 minutes of turning it a quarter turn and get a real pain in the neck. The problem is that rather than being straight up and having easy access to the bolt, it's tipped forward like this and there's very little room to get at it. As rusty as that is, I think that's going to be a problem. The way the factory suggests you do it is you pull this tin pan out of the floor that's under the back seat and then you can easily access it. I think in the interest of trying not to destroy these bolts and being able to use some heat or some PV blaster or whatever, that's what we're going to do. But Dad's just confirming my opinion on that and then we'll make a decision here.
So the nut is over that top flange,
Yes.
comes up through there at an angle,
Yeah.
and there's a nut on top of that,
Yep.
and you're supposed to put a wrench in there and go,
Yeah.
let's pull a pad. These things are for?
Body welting, I think, for going between the body and the frame. That's pretty sure that's what that is.
Body what?
It's welting for going between the body and the frame if you were to take the body off.
Oh,
Pretty sure. There's a bunch of it in here. Something like that anyway. So yeah, we have years and years of accumulated stuff in here plus some stuff we put. So we got to get all of that cleaned out. And oh, look, here are the tailpipe tips for the Oakland.
oh, okay.
And we've got tire chains under the back seat that need to come out. And then that steel pan right there, we'll need to pull the nails because it's nailed to the floor and pull that up out of there. And when we put it back, we're going to put it back with screws so that we don't have to pull nails.
And a 1926 license plate.
Yes, we have the original 26 license plate for the car we're hoping to reuse to put on the car because that would be legal in the state of Michigan.
Oh, that's a new inner tube.
Okay, so we got everything cleaned out and Dad's just checking everything over. We're going to run around with a vacuum and suck up all of the acorns and things left from mice and squirrels over the years.
Yep.
But this is the steel pan that we need to take out to access the stuff underneath, which makes sense for doing exhaust and also getting at the rear end. And like I said, when we put it back in, we're going to make it a little bit more user-friendly to take in and out because it's an old car and we're probably going to have to do it again. So better than nailing it, we will screw it down.
So that's this whole piece here, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And from the nails, you can tell that it's probably been out before because not all the nails are the same.
Okay.
I see some with bigger heads and stuff like that. So.
Yep. Okay. Upholstery doesn't look too bad, does it?
No, the interior is, other than being completely washed out and faded out, it's,
Yeah. I mean, it's old, but it's
Yeah.
not torn or
nope.
chewed up or...
I'm amazed that the mice didn't play havoc with it.
I know. Must have been made out of material that didn't taste good.
I don't know. We've caught enough mice in here. It makes me wonder, but but for sitting
we
all
even
those,
have-
yeah, I would not pull those down.
I think you're right. back.
Yep, good. We need to put signs on those when people ride in it. Do not touch. If we want to get them redone to use them, we'll have to put new material on them. But other than that, I think we should leave them alone.
For historical purposes only.
Yeah. Yeah, that is one of my concerns when we start driving the car is how is this going to hold up? You know?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so what we're doing is taking a small Wonder Bar that Dad's got there, and we're just going to go underneath the tin, pop the nails up a little bit, and then of course come on top of the tin and be able to pull the nails out. And for those that don't know, half of these cars are made out of wood. So all of this body structure is basically made out of wood with metal nailed to it. So this is very common here that, you know, we've got a metal pan that was for storage under the rear seat. It's nailed to the wooden floor and framework of the car. So that's what we're doing, is just going through and pulling those out. I can't believe those nails are pulling out and not snapping off.
Yeah.
So many cars that I've worked on in this era, you start
Oh,
pulling
yeah?
those nails like that, and the heads will just snap right off of them because they're so rusted.
Well, these don't look too bad. I
No, they
think.
don't really.
Yeah. They're shiny.
Yeah.
Oops. Oh, boy.
So that's 3, and he's only got about 50 more to go.
And this in there,
I'm sure it's been out before.
I would think so. You can see there's a little bend in the middle.
Yeah. I noticed some nails over here that have got bigger heads also.
Oh, okay. Just like the house I grew up in has a trap door.
Yeah.
In the basement.
We've got one in the house here too, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Only we don't have a basement.
There's our bolts.
Yep, very good.
Okay.
Okay, so there's the bolts. There. And there. And the other nice thing is it makes our life so much easier to access the rear end. It's a front and rear loader, and the exhaust system. So we're going to be, yeah, I'm glad we did that. I think overall it's a good move. So.
And my old head doesn't have to lay upside down under a car.
Exactly. So we got the pan out, and now we need to get the lines loose from the, I won't call it a sending unit because it's not a sending unit, but from the outlets of the fuel tank, so that we can drop that tank down and walk it out of there. I tried to see if maybe this would turn so we could take that loose and drop the tank off of this outlet. but it doesn't want to turn, so we will need to get that out of there to clean those lines, but we'll do that once we have the tank out. So we'll get these lines loose, and then we'll get the bolts off the inside on the straps and lower this tank out of the car. Okay, so we have the fuel tank out. I was able to walk it out of there and get those down out. It's got two wooden spacers to hold the tank in position. So we'll be able to flush this tank out, get some marbles in there with some kerosene probably, and slosh it around. Well, we'll just show you. I don't have any marbles right now. I've lost them, so I'll have to go and find my marbles. I wanted to take just a minute and explain the theory behind the fuel system on this car in a little more depth. So I've said before that this is a vacuum slash fuel canister, and how it functions is engine vacuum is drawn on the top of this unit, puts a vacuum in here that causes it to draw or suck fuel from the tank. But there's a little bit more to it than that. There's two chambers in here. There's an upper chamber with a float, and then the lower chamber. The lower chamber gets filled with fuel from that suction, and then gravity feeds the engine, and the engine of course takes what it needs and just keeps getting more from this gravity feed canister. The float rises and lowers as the engine draws fuel, or as the engine draws, the vacuum draws fuel from the tank. It fills up that upper chamber and then closes that float, which closes off the vacuum. And so that fuel continues to drain down, and then that float opens back up, it draws more as it needs it, and it closes, and lather, rinse, and repeat on that unit. The second side of this is the fuel sending unit, or the gas gauge side of it. And it's taken me a little while to exactly comprehend how this works. I'm not saying I'm going to have this 100% accurate, but based upon my understanding of fluid dynamics and pressure dynamics, I think I get how this is working. Those of you who know a lot more about Oaklands, drop comments down there and correct me where I'm wrong. Basically, the fuel gauge that's in the dash, which is almost unheard of in this era of car. I mean, Model Ts, you had a wooden stick that you stuck in your gas tank to check your gas level in 1926. Starting in 1928, the Model A, the gas tank was right here and just gravity fed the engine. So this is a little bit more of an advanced thing because it's a luxury car. It has a gas gauge in the dash, but the tank is in the back and there's no electrical sending unit in that. So what it does is it uses a pressure differential. On one side of the gas gauge, it's drawing off of the same vacuum that it's using to draw fuel from the tank. And on the other side, it's got an air line that goes back to the tank. In the tank, I'm going to call it the sending unit. It's the outlet of the tank, but it's just a habit to call it that. In the tank, there is an air bulb that this air sense line from the gauge, not this one, but it's actually down here. This line that runs back there, it goes into that air sense bulb. The more gas there is in the tank, the more there is pressure in that bulb. So the gas gauge is sensing the difference between the pressure from that air bulb through this line and the engine vacuum getting a differential pressure, and that is what allows the fuel gauge to indicate where the gas gauge or the gas level is in the tank, and as a result you see that in the gas gauge in the dash. It's pretty ingenious, it's pretty clever. What a great way to use a pressure differential to give you an indicator of how much gas is in this thing. How accurate is it? I have no idea, but I think it's a pretty clever, complex way of doing things when you didn't have the technology to have a reliable resistor, variable resistor in the tank like we use probably since the 40s all the way up to modern day cars, where it's just a variable resistor with a float that tells you where your fuel level is. So we're going to be very careful to avoid putting any air back through the vacuum/air sense side of this at this point. And what we are going to do is pull the fuel line off and blow back through this line and make sure that it's clear. We'll spray some carburetor spray through there. But we just want to get this fuel system flushed out. That's what's coming next. If you would like me to do a more in-depth analysis and explanation on this fuel gauge system, let me know, and I can pop a whiteboard episode either into one of these Oakland episodes or do it as a special. Well, what the heck size is that? Oh, what is that? That's just been rounded off. Okay, apparently it's going to be metric, and I don't know if I have a metric line wrench that size. So I was trying with a 3/8 or a 7/16, I don't remember which, but this has been taken on and off over the years with pliers, I'm quite sure. So I went to a metric to see. I was going to give you guys a little bit of a tease about it. It had a metric line on it, but it's not 7/16 or 3/8, whichever that was. It's not 10 millimeter. It's not 9 millimeter. It's not 11 millimeter. One's too big, one's too small. So I got out my handy dandy universal squeezers, and we'll just carefully and gently take that line off this way. We may look at replacing this line. We may not. I don't like doing it this way, but I can't get anything else on it. So I guess we're carrying on the family tradition.
Just going steer through that line in the back.
I was going to say, why don't you see if it happens to be coming out the back? Yep, I can hear it.
Yep. It's working all over your map.
Okay, you want to move the mat? Is it clean coming out?
I think so. Yeah, looks pretty good.
Okay, we'll blow that out with air and we'll call it good. Okay, so we have spent a fair bit of time off of camera hooking up our vacuum system to test the fuel system. You saw us blow through. We disconnected the vacuum line from the engine. It's got bad fittings. We're going to have to take care of that. But we took and got my vacuum pump out, which is right here in the tote. It's an old military unit, came out of an inspection lab at, I think it was Wurtsmith Air Force Base, or no, the one up north. No, Wurtsmith was up north, yeah. Or Selfridge, I don't remember which one. It leaks oil like a sieve. A guy that was in the military, they were going to throw it out 30 years ago. He was a customer of mine and he gave it to me. So anyway, it's an old military vacuum pump that has lasted me forever. So we've got that hooked up. It runs up here into the vacuum line. We've got it clamped down with a rubber spacer or another vacuum line inside. And that runs up here to the vacuum canister. We pulled this all off. It had all kinds of tape and it just was ugly. We didn't know what was going on up here. I think they couldn't get it to seal properly, so I think we've resolved all that now. So then we'll go back to the back of the car and show you what we've got back there to show you how we're testing this canister and fuel system. So I've got my antique vacuum gauge, which actually I inherited from the guy I bought my Model A from, so it's probably from the 50s. And we just put a piece of hose on here and then just shoved it against this line back here. We can't get it on there, but we can hold it on here like this, And then we'll turn the vacuum pump on and we will see if we get a vacuum reading over here on the gauge. It has a high-tech switch that we use to turn on. Make sure that our valve is open so it's drawing vacuum. We need to replace this hose, but it'll be good enough for now. We'll go back around behind the car. So I don't have it on there yet, but we've got our gauge and we can watch, and if we put this against this vacuum line, or this fuel line here, we should see a vacuum. I'm not getting a good seal here. There we go. We're getting about 23, 22, which is about right for where we're at for sea level. Maximum inches of vacuum that you can draw at sea level is 30 inches. Probably where we're at, 22 to 25 is fairly normal. 15 is considered the minimum, but we got good vacuum, which means our canister is holding vacuum and our fuel lines are holding vacuum, and so it should suck fuel when we hook up the gas tank to it. So having a fuel system that sucks is a good thing in this case. Well, I think we're at a good point here for the next steps. So we know that our fuel system is good, our vacuum is working. We'll be able to draw fuel up here. We've got to repair the fuel vacuum line that goes into the manifold because that was all messed up. So I think the next step is to get the gas tank cleaned out. And being as it has that air bubble in it, I didn't mention it, I normally would just take like kerosene or mineral spirits or something like that, put it in the gas tank and put marbles in it and slosh it around. I don't want to try to take that unit out of the tank. We tried to loosen it and it's pretty stiff. So I think what we're going to do is get a bunch of cans of like Cyclo Carb Clean or something, gum out or I don't know, something, and just spray them in there and try to get a puddle and let that soak and slosh it around and soak and slosh it around for a couple days. Then we'll pull the bung out of the bottom of the tank and drain it. That stuff's compatible with gas anyway, so we'll get as much as we can. And then I'm concerned about putting a fuel filter in the system because I don't know, fuel filters should generally be after the pump. This doesn't have a pump, so it would be between the vacuum and the carburetor. So I'm concerned about drawing that vacuum through a filter. It can cause fuel issues, yet maybe we should. So I'll spend some time thinking about that. We know we're drawing pretty good vacuum as far as what the system will do. We don't know how many inches of vacuum the engine itself draws. So we will need to put a vacuum gauge on that. So it would be between here and the tank somewhere. And we may go ahead and do that, put a nice size one on there, so that I'd rather deal with some, especially early on, I'd rather deal with some having to take a fuel filter off and clean it once in a while than getting all that garbage in this thing. Yeah. So I guess it'll either work or it doesn't. So I think that's the next steps, is to get that tank cleaned out and put back in. We're still waiting on the ignition stuff, but of course it's running fine. We got some linkage stuff to deal with because for some reason people think it's funny that I use zip ties and duct tape to hook the throttle up. But that's good progress. I think that's, it's not complete, but it's definitely a big step forward in knowing where we're at. So anything you want to add to that?
No, not really.
Okay.
Kind of a unique thing though, to be able to take that floor pan out back there and work on top of stuff in the rear end.
It's very cool.
That made an impression.
So one of the things we talked about was, I do a lot of blathering and talking, but you kind of contribute, but you had some thoughts and so forth about your experience of when we fired it up. I think it was last episode, that you wanted to share. So.
Well, I got left kind of speechless at the end of all this when that thing kicked in and fired. Anybody who watched the video knows that was a pretty exciting moment, and certainly for me. In that session, we literally we put in hours, not only that session but before, cranking this thing over and listening to it chuff and sputter and not do what it was supposed to do. So we came down to about all we could do for that day, at least with what we had available, and said, let's do something productive before the day ends. So we went on to work on other things, and then when we came down to about time to finish up for the day, you said, well, let's try it once more. So I consented, but honestly I thought, what's any different?
Right?
So I got back in there in the spot and pushed on the starter, and it cranked over once and didn't sound any different. And when it went into its second revolution of the starter, nothing sounded any different again. But I never heard the third crank because the thing kicked in and it came to life, and it just started running. And it sounded like it had never had a problem in its lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, when you work that throttle, it just revved up right away, and
Yep.
and we got a little oil smoke.
A lot.
But we talked about oil in the engine for years. We know where that came from. So it was just astounding. Miraculous is the word that comes to mind. It was like a resurrection,
Yeah.
the dead coming to life, and after 75 years.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about this a little bit today, that it's almost, I think part of what was astounding about it was almost like a voice from the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much family history tied up here, and this is what this car sounded like to my grandfather,
Yeah.
your great-grandpa. So it was quite an experience to be able to be here for all that. So I'm really thankful to you that you were looking for help and willing to include me in this whole experience. You and I have worked on cars in the past. I mean, it's been quite a while ago. We had some different car things we worked on, mine, and well, I remember working on a Pinto together back when you were a teenager.
Shh, don't say the Pinto word.
Uh-oh.
No, it's fine.
It's leaked out. But it's been quite a while since we've done anything on car together. So this has really been a neat experience for me late in life to be able to come back to working together with you and just getting a whole new perspective on your expertise and wisdom and creativity with this also. I guess another word that comes to mind is wizardry. I don't know how detailed you want to go with all of this, but duct tape.
The floor is yours.
Duct tape and a lawnmower, a gas tank, and wires hanging out of the door, and yet I pushed that starter and vroom, away it went. So you've been able to work around the systems in this car that are not functional at this point in time, knowing what it takes to make an engine run and to get creative with that. And a week ago, you drove it around the yard. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So it's been quite an experience. So I really do thank you for that, for the chance to work with you. It's been a bonus out of all of this for me.
Yeah, good.
I guess I'd also say thank you to Sister Nancy for being the custodian of this heirloom and other family heirlooms over the years as well. When my dad, Grandpa, was passed away, she kind of took over and saw to it that this was cared for and kept under cover, and even Brother Richard helped her out with some of that sometimes. I know especially when they had to move it from one garage to another. So this has been quite an experience, and there's a lot more to do yet, but we're getting there.
It is. It's come a long ways. We've got a ton of work to do to be able to put it on the road.
Yeah, we're a long way away from a Sunday afternoon drive.
At least other than around the yard with no clutch and duct tape and zip ties.
Yeah.
But we made good progress today getting the fuel system, getting a handle on it, knowing where that's at.
Yeah.
So that's another, and that's what I try to do, is break things down into systems. We've got the power system working, we're getting the fuel system done, we've got electrical work to do, but as you focus on systems, as you get those systems completed, pretty soon the whole car's done. So, unfortunately, we don't have to do any body work or paint work on this, so
No,
it's there's none of that.
nothing to speak of. But I think the motor running and the thing actually being mobile was
Yeah.
really a good, encouragement.
Yeah.
And it just feels like a different project now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely does. And I don't think we've mentioned on the channel before, but of all the living family, you're the only person who's ever ridden in this car.
Yeah.
You probably don't remember that.
No, I don't.
You
And I
were,
don't remember what it sounded like either.
you were 2 or 3 years old. 3 years old probably when it was taken off the road, or close to 3.
Yeah, in 46 I would have been 3. Well, this came off the road, I think we thought in October,
Yeah,
September, October
Yeah.
of 46, and my birthday's in November, so
Yeah.
I would have been just short of 3 when it was
Yeah.
put up on blocks. So.
Yep. So you still haven't gotten a ride in it yet, but we're going to make that happen, even if we don't have the clutch free. So.
Well, I didn't ride, and I'm still looking forward to that. But former photographer, I just had to be behind the camera and be sure that it was filmed, and everybody got to see that.
Yeah, and Dad was a professional photographer early in his career before he went into ministry. So that's put him behind the camera. He ran the camera today too. So. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for this episode. So thanks for being here, and thanks for enjoying this project with us, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Rock. Yeah.